Well, hello everybody. And I was about to say forgive the echo because I've got echo. Apparently you haven't, so no problem there. Welcome to yet another new edition of the Inworld Book Review. We're still in October, 19th. Is that right? Yes, I think it's the 19th of October in the year 2011. We're broadcasting live from Shilpo in Second Life, and we're brought to you in association with ATV. Well, we have a nice full show for you this week. We have quite a lot of news headlines, which we'll come into later. I'm joined in the studio, of course, by Tara. Hi, Maria.
Hi, Mel.
And hi, Tara.
Hi, Mel.
And we've got two wonderful guests in the studio as well. Firstly, we have a lady called Thirza Ember, who is one of the guiding minds behind the Hypergrid Safari. And we've been trucking around the metaverse, really, seeing all sorts of destinations. Last week, Thirza and her companions opened a safari embassy inside Second Life. And it's a joy to behold. One wall is filled with a massive hypergate and a sign saying out of order. Because in Second Life, it don't work.
Nice.
Anyway, more on that later. We're also joined by John Lester, Pathfinder Lester, once known as Pathfinder Linda way back when. And Pathfinder was also responsible for the Hypergrid Adventures Club, which was active, I suppose, principally a couple of years ago now. I sound like I'm slurring, by the way. It's because I'm coping with my own echo, and it's not fun. Anyhow, we'll come to that in a little bit. First of all, I'm just going to mention a few things from my Twitter stream that don't lead to the Hypergrid business, which may be of interest. The first link I've got, and I'm just going to copy it over now, is to Road to VR, one of your favourite websites. And I think this is actually really interesting. They do report a lot on things being built for the Oculus Rift and similar technologies. And the title of this article is Guided Meditation Proves that VR relaxation will almost certainly become its own genre. I'm fighting against my own voice coming back. But anyway, this is a very good article. It's concerned with the idea of ambient spaces that people will use in virtual reality gear, which won't be games, there won't be story adventures. They'll just be places to go and relax and even learn meditation techniques. So I thought this was a rather interesting one there. I'm going to keep that short because I'm struggling with my own voice. It's not fun there. Fine. Okay. The next one is the Hypergrid business, so we'll leave that one. The final one is again to... I know what I've done here. Right. Motor VR again. This must be like standing on a stage and finding the noise from the back of the audience firing back at you and not knowing what's going on. This post is about Rift Max Theatre. This is something we've mentioned in previous weeks. It's a sort of online virtual TV studio, which runs on your desktop and is compatible with things like so people have been doing events about VR from within VR. It's not a fully creative, interactive space like OpenSim and Second Life are, but it's point of view of broadcast really. Right, and the final link I had here, which didn't actually open, is an interview. Here we are. about how Lucky Palmer actually created the Oculus, and when it opens. This is actually at the Smithsonian, and the link is coming across here now. Smithsonian.com, and it's basically a sort of in-depth article about Palmer Luckey created the Oculus Rift. Right, now if I don't get this echo, I'm going to just shut up for the rest of the show. With that, I'm going to delicately hand you over to Tara for her take on the week. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you, Mal. And of course, yours truly is in the broadcast hot seat today, so I'm juggling a few more buttons than I normally do, but I believe I have all the buttons sorted out, which have given me fits the last several weeks. So hopefully the recording is looking good on this today, as distinct from the last couple of tries. Anyway, well, first off, before I forget, I really do need to do a little show and tell here on some fun items that I found over the last week or actually the last couple of weeks. And my most recent find are these little guys. These are sweater penguins. And they, as you can see, one of them is moving, and they do move. And this is a gotcha item in a store. And unfortunately, I can't click to tell you whose they are, and I didn't make a note because I was too busy with other things beforehand. But I thought they were awfully cute. Of course, I have a soft spot for penguins, and like that. And the other is we have this new resident on stage who plays a ukulele. But he's pretty quiet. He just kind of sits there and keeps an eye on things. Our new resident bear, who comes with a little stack of books that he sits on. And he was also a gotcha item in another recent gotcha event that has ended, unfortunately. So I'm afraid you're out of luck on finding him unless you find the creator and see if they've put their machine up elsewhere. I happened to hit on this one on about the third try, and I was very happy because it was the bear that I wanted. Because he was just entirely too cute. Anyhow, well, I just have a few items, and that's probably a good thing given everything else going on in the way of news here today. And just a minute here, we'll do that. Yes. Burn 2014 opened yesterday and runs through this week. And I don't know that I can do much of anything about the fact that my audio is cutting out, other than maybe repeat myself, since I can't tell what my audio is doing. Anyway, Burn 2014 opened this week, yesterday, and runs through next Sunday. As in previous years, it's spread across 6 regions that all look suspiciously like a desert, as appropriate considering its origin in the original Burning Life, which had its origin in the Burning Man Festival, which happens in Nevada annually in September. Theme for this year is Caravansary. Basically, and I'll let you check in our Apaze blog if you want more description. But the key is go visit this week because it's the only week you have, and it's a fun very much user created event. And the Burn group actually is having things, does events throughout the year, but this is the big one. And lastly, I have just a couple of Eat Your Vegetables items this week. First off, those of you who are around significant techie circles in an ongoing way may have heard about Poodle this week. The latest vulnerability, this major internet vulnerability to emerge. Poodle is short for Padding Oracle on Downgraded Legacy Encryption. How's that for a mouthful? Basically, it relates to SSL, which is Secure Socket Layer. This is something that service providers have to contend with. and it is creating some issues. The issue it created in Second Life specifically was some people using the internal browser from Second Life were not able to access some sites because of how the sites had implemented a patch for Poodle. The lab apparently has made a change so that that's fixed on the lab end. But if you haven't encountered it, it's not something that you can do anything about or need to do anything about on your own machine. But if you host a website and you haven't heard about it, check with your website provider and know that the Second Life issue has been resolved. Couple things on the issue of how quickly stuff downloads for viewing. First off, they have rolled out the first test Inworld of the going through a different route instead of the sim host for downloading texture and mesh assets. And it's now been rolled out onto Blue Steel as a test. It's supposed to make that stuff download way faster. So go find yourself a Blue Steel sim. We actually may be on one right now. I know this used to be Blue Steel, and whether it still is, I'm not sure. And that's Chobo. And if Chobo isn't, one of the neighboring ones around Chobo is probably Blue Steel. So you can check that out, and if it all goes well on the first test grids, it'll probably appear on more in the short haul. They've also released a new project view, release candidate viewer related to HTTP pipelining, which also is related to increasing speed of mesh and texture downloads. So if you're really interested in that stuff and you're using the main viewer, you may want to try to get the HTTP pipelining RC viewer. And on that note, I'm going to toss it back to Mal and let him move things along so we get to hear from everybody today. Mal?
Okay.
I think Mal muted himself or something.
Well, while we're waiting for Mal to rejoin us.
Oh, yes, right. Well, folks, you will be glad to hear that while Tara was talking, I managed to get rid of my phone echo. I had two microphones on at once, not helping us at all. And inadvertently,
much better.
I just went and switched the microphone I don't want off, and of course I haven't put the other one back on. So anyway, we're not behaving very professionally this week at all, are we? And on my recording, I'm the only one who's actually seems to be moving his lips. So this is all fun and games. We have two recordings available for us to play around with. Right, I knew I'd missed a headline that I had planned for this show, and it was. Tara's already covered it, but my headline was going to be Poodle puts paid to virtual media. I thought that had a kind of Sun newspaper ring to it, really.
Yeah, well, for some reason, it actually ought to be Poodle Piddles on something, but.
Maybe it was nice I didn't go there then. Okay, well, that is great. So I'm going to hand over to Maria now for I'm busy pulling up my links, but a lot of them head straight to her anyway. There's really quite a lot of news this week, isn't there, Maria? So fire away.
Yes, there is. All right, let's quickly get started. My big story this week was the monthly stats reports came out, and we had a growth of 1,600 regions. So we've got 52,000 regions in OpenSim right now, just on the public grids, which is more than twice the area of Second Life. Now, this is the area, not the user base. The area is bigger. The number of active users actually fell by 280 this month because OS Grid is still out. It's been more than 2 months that OS Grid has been down, and there's still no estimated time when it will be coming back up again. So the residents are starting to get very anxious. The vendors who rent land on OpenSim, who make their living from it, are also anxious. I mean, it's really hurting a lot of people. Now Metropolis grew by almost 700 regions, and it also got a whole lot of new users too. And Metropolis is hurting because it's also a nonprofit grid, and it's having to absorb all these users all in one big lump, and it's running out of money for its servers and all this other stuff. So if you have some money to donate, please go online, go to Metropolis, go to OS Grid. OS Grid needs money to help them recover, and Metropolis needs money to help them pay for the servers, for the assets that they're covering for everybody. So these two grids are nonprofits, and they need your help. Okay, but the biggest news was the number of OpenSim downloads. So there's I track 4 major distributions of OpenSim: the Diva distro, Sim on a Stick, Inworld Studio, and the official OpenSim distribution from OpenSimulator.org. And there were more than 7,300 downloads over the past 4 weeks. So you got to consider that there's 200 grids out there. Okay, so some of them are getting upgraded versions of OpenSim, but there's several thousand other people who are downloading OpenSim, whether they're running their own regions or they're running standalone mini grids or who knows what they're doing, but they're using it. So of those, 5,300 were from the official site, and 1,200 were Sim on a Stick. Those are the 2 big ones. Now, one of the reasons could be is that a couple of new versions of OpenSim came out, 8.0.1 and 8.0.2, which fix some issues with avatar attachments, physics, and permissions. All right, the top grid for popularity was, as usual, Inworlds, followed by Metropolis. Not much new there, no new surprises on that list. I mentioned, I think last week, that Tangle Grid, which is known for its expos, launched a non-profit grid, an open grid like OS Grid, Tangle OS. So it's a separate grid, so they're now running 2 different grids, a commercial grid and a non-profit grid. The non-profit is an open grid that anyone can connect to. So if you're an OS Grid refugee and you don't want to be connecting to one of the European grids like Metropolis, Craft, Franco Grid, you can connect up to Tangle OS. Okay, Sim Valley doubled in size. They're a grid from the Netherlands. They're also planning to launch a non-profit open grid called OpenSim.nl. So they're going to be expanding that. On the Kitely market, exportables grow at twice the rate of other kinds of products. 3 times of non-exportable products and twice the rate of products overall. So merchants are starting to embrace the hypergrid, and it's starting to become comfortable with hypergrid delivery. I'm So Kindly Market has a whole bunch of Halloween stuff. Littlefield has Halloween. All the grids are having Halloween parties. Virtual Highway, Club Zandramas is holding Halloween.
It's funny, Halloween just seems to be the thing every year in every virtual world, more so than just about any other time of year.
I think that this is our holiday. The Halloween is kind of it's even in real life it's kind of like a virtual holiday where we're all avatars. So in the virtual world it's even more so. This is our national holiday. You know, America has the 4th of July. I don't know what other countries have, some other holiday. The virtual worlds have Halloween. Spellscape is having a nice Halloween party. Several grids have closed down that we were tracking before, including World DC, and AviWorld 3D and Another World and Worlds for Us, a whole bunch of worlds. We're marking them closed.
Avi World 3D, is that connected with Avi World?
Nope, totally unrelated.
Oh,
Please,
okay.
people, stop putting the word world or some form of Avi or avatar in or the world virtual in your grid name. We can't tell these grids apart. Please.
Yeah.
Oh my god. In fact, I counted this up. In my database, I had 82 different closed grids with the word world in them. So clearly, it's a jinx to have the word world in your grid. Maybe that's AviWorld's problem.
Yes.
All right.
It would be so lovely if we had a nice prefix, like a WW, a W that just said space or world, and then people could name themselves appropriately thereafter. But never mind. Yeah.
So you can see all the data up there. I upgraded the active grids list, so you guys can get all that from the website. ZetaMax has been having a little bit of turmoil, and they had a public meeting earlier this week, at which we learned that Timothy Rogers, the founder, who had stepped down as CEO, is back as CEO. And the other big news from from that meeting was that they're discontinuing their under $10 regions. As you guys might remember, I was able to snag one of the $3 regions that they had in the summer, and I guess I'm one of the last, one of the few people who were able to get it because they've shut it down. I love my $3 region, but apparently they were providing full support for these $3 regions, and it's really hard to pay your staff for the time that they're spending supporting the regions when all you're making from those regions are $3 each. So they're going to be issuing a new price list on November 1st. So keep an eye out for that.
I think, I have to say that $3 and then $5 region almost seems too good to be true. But I guess if they're grandfathered, you're just darn lucky.
Yeah. They're putting them in. But that doesn't mean that you now have to pay more than $10 per region. The horror. I guess for Second Life residents, maybe they don't understand this. But you see, in OpenSim, regions are really, really cheap. There's no startup, there's no setup fees. There's, it's all open source software. It's all running on, generic servers. So we can get our 15,000 regions, 45,000 prim regions, 100,000 prim regions, unlimited prim regions for between $10 and $45 a pop. But fortunately, for those of us for whom that's still too much money, there's a new hosting provider, CloudServe, and their regions start at $7.95 each. And their mini grids start at $34.95, and their full grids start at $94.95. And so the early reviews are that it's working okay. I'm going to be signing up for one of their regions on probably this week and seeing how well they work. Very nice interface, very nice website, and of course, by now we're used to it. All the self-service options, so you can get all your backups of the region itself, of your inventory, and you can restart your region and do the usual stuff that you need to do with the region. You can just do it by yourself without a support ticket. So that's going to be very interesting, and they can connect the regions to any open grid, and the mini grids and the full grids are just by themselves. And another option for $8 regions is Third Rock Grid. They have a deal for new residents. If you come in, you get the first month free, and then after that, $8 per month for a 50,000 per region for as long as you have that region. This is just for new residents, and it's a single region offer. but it's a good deal, especially because Third Rock Grid is about to go on the hypergrid.
Yes.
There's been a trend among grids to enable the hypergrid, and what they're doing, and I love this is such a great thing, they are installing filters so that if you want to save your ore file or your inventory file or travel the hypergrid, the only things that can leave the grid are those that you've created or that have full permissions, or however the grid sets it up. So that if, for example, you have it set to only full permissions things can travel, then the creators just have to make sure that at least one of the permissions is checked no, to ensure that their content stays on the grid. Or if they don't mind if it travels or people make backups of it, maybe they'll charge extra for it. They can make it full perm. So I love this trend because it opens up the hypergrid to more grids.
Exactly. I mean, it's almost like one does it, then that does it, and suddenly it becomes fashionable to be on the hypergrid, and that's what we need, isn't it?
And it takes a little bit of people were waiting to see how it worked out for other grids because how secure is this? And the grids are finding out that it's just as secure as being closed. Because, of course, being closed provides zero security. I mean, in any practical sense. There's all the copy botting is happening in Second Life, which, of course, is closed to the hypergrid. Because crooks are going to be crooks, right? The thieves are going to steal. Honest people, are more likely to comply with the rules and regulations. And by having the filtering set up, it makes it a lot easier for honest people to be honest. It makes it a lot harder for the crooks to be crooks. So I think it's an excellent balance, and I'm really happy that this is happening. This in combination with Kitely Market, with all the hypergrid deliveries, the exportable products, I think is a clear indication of a trend that we're starting to see the real birth of the metaverse, and that creators are embracing it, and I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah. Good news.
So the Open Sim Community Conference is going to be on the 8th and 9th, and we're starting to reach the end of tickets. There's only there's fewer than 100 left, so go and sign up. Also, if you want to volunteer, they're still looking for greeters and moderators. So please go to that story is also up on my site. Please go and sign up and register if you want to attend in person. There'll be unlimited streaming on the web as well. But if you want to be actually at the conference, you need to register, and it's free registration, unless you want to be a sponsor and support it. Another interesting thing was that the adult grid connected to the Kitely Market and to Podex. So the adult grid, you might have heard of it because earlier this month it came in second in a survey of OpenSim users. In the best overall score, second only to Island Oasis. It's a fast-growing grid. It doesn't publish its monthly active users, but extrapolating from the growth in registered users and its logins at any given time, it looks like it should be in the top 10 list already. It's a very fast-growing grid. And so they're now accepting Kitely Market deliveries. They're not open to the hypergrid yet, may still come. But if you go to a region called the Safe Zone, you can accept deliveries of any of the exportable content on the Kitely Market. And they also have a connection with Podex, which is a third-party currency exchange based in the UK, which means that right now, of the top 7 grids that have currencies, all of them except Kitely connect to Podex. All of them except Kitely and Island Oasis connect to Podex. And the Kitely Market, of course, has two types of payments. They have the PayPal payments for real money, and they have the KC payments, which are purely virtual. you can only spend the KC in world and on land. And the reason is because if you're a United States grid and you accept currency and you redeem that currency for your users, you could be setting yourself up for some legal issues, legal problems. So a lot of the big grids are now saying, okay, we will sell you the currency, but if you want to exchange it back for money, you will have to trade it with other users here at this third-party exchange, and we have nothing to do with that. So the currency, as far as we're concerned, is purely fictional. So, and I think that's an excellent compromise for virtual currencies because it isolates you from the legal liability to a significant degree. I already mentioned that there was an upgrade to OpenSim that came out. Spellscape and Avanation are two commercial grids. They donated the code to fix this bug. Spellscape found the bug, fixed it, and Avanation added it to the code base. So I want to applaud those grids for giving back to the community. Thank you very much, grids. I have part of the Hyperica redesign. I've put some free gates up on Hyperica, and I have posted a bunch of gate scripts on the Hyperica business as well. So you can download those scripts and make your own gates, or you can teleport over to Hyperica and just grab a bunch of them. And I've also put them on Kitely Market for whatever minimum prices they have. So if you want to just grab it off the Kitely Market, you can do that as well. Okay. And there's some bug fixes and they're a little bit easier to program. All you have to do is change the name to the name of the destination and change the object description to the hypergrid address, and that's it. So you don't have to mess around with the script at all. All right. Oh, Uncraft.
Okay, sorry, carry on. A lot of news. Okay.
Museo del Metaverso is back on Craft Grid after 2-year absence. This is a historic kind of landmark destination, so you can go and visit it. Island Oasis releases a new viewer that's Oculus Rift compatible, and in combination with that, their Halloween region is also ready for the Oculus Rift. And they're working on a Facebook app that's going to be coming out pretty soon. And speaking of the Oculus Rift, the Charlotte Latin School in North Carolina is using Oculus Rifts for their art, engineering, and programming students. And I think that they say they're the first school in the United States to use this in their classrooms. So that's interesting. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of other schools following suit. And,
we've spoken in our conversations in the past about how it's going to be out of the home things where Oculus takes with, and we've been talking about arcades and things like that. But schools, of course, are an obvious choice,
right.
aren't they? Yeah.
There's a new option for a headset, Arcos, ARCHOS VR, is $30. It's going to be available next month, and for the price of a cardboard headset. This is a plastic solid one that will work with any of the major cell phones, including iPhones and Android phones. So, and even Windows phones if you have one.
Is this the one where is this the one where you buy you can buy a whole selection of different trays depending on your phone model? Oh
no,
right.
No, it has a little bit of an adjustable front there's no trays, it just slides in there. Right. So it's nice because the price is good. I mean, that's how much some of the cardboards are going for. I mean, you can get a cardboard kit for like $10 too, but it's also cardboard, cardboard. So this is plastic one with a nice strap and everything. And I'm actually considering maybe getting that one. Oculus acquired the technology of a 3D audio company. So that's the Oculus Rift doesn't have built-in audio right now. You have to wear a separate headset to hear anything. So maybe that there'll be integrated sound sometime in the future, integrated 3D sound. That would be pretty cool. And my favorite story of the month is that is that if you happen to have been in New York Comic Con, you were able to fly on the dragons from How to Train Your Dragon 2. And
Yeah.
oh my God, I wish I was there. There was an article, I think, in Wired magazine this month, complaining that the first exposure people see to the Oculus Rift for most people are these branded commercial experiences. I'm sorry, but I would love that experience. I think that flying on a dragon would be like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So, and that's it for me.
For the headlines, at any rate.
And before we go at the end, I have a little sneak preview of a big story in OpenStem that I'm going to be working on this week.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that later.
We'll come back to
that. Move on to our guests here. Okay, a couple more links then, because they didn't lead to your site. The first one, I've already done it. Sending it across now. This is sort of interesting. It was actually a virtual environment. The King's College in London here had a series of online open days to attract students, and they had a sort of virtual world installation where people could log in and look around and partake in the open day, and they had 13,000 visitors from 40 different countries checking out places at King's College in London. So rather successful way of promoting college uptake for the new year or whatever. What else have I got here? This is to a site called the Western Morning News, wherever that might be. Western something or other somewhere. Interesting enough. A virtual world simulation game could help to avoid flooding. And the idea being that with climate change and all the rest of it, you can actually go into a virtual world simulation that will project possible climate change and topographical changes in the future, and sort of understand different things that might help avoid flooding. That's another UK project by at the University of Exeter, I hasten to add. Finally, the other one I dug up is our friend K0 at K0 Co UK. I'll copy that over too. Just for yes, there it is. Yes, another chart. K0 are very good at bringing out charts for statistics, and this is the Q4 2014 virtual reality hardware market. And it includes the virtual reality, augmented reality, and augmented virtuality, and the real environment. And this is a rather nice division, actually. It starts in real environment, moves to augmented reality, then moves to augmented virtuality before ending up in virtual reality. Isn't terminology wonderful, folks? What will they think of next? Anyway, interesting statistics there from K0, as always. Right, now there's probably more here that we'll get to, but we'll get to it later in the conversation. There was something else to do with Second Life I was going to mention, but I can't remember what it is, so I'm going to move on, and we're going to introduce our guests. And first off, I'm going to sort of move between them quite rapidly as we get into the conversation. But first off, I'd like to welcome Thirza Ember to the show. So welcome, Thirza.
Hi there, thank you, Mel.
I've only just found the right camera for you. Okay. Now it's great to have you here. I forget how many months now it is that the Hypergrowth Safari has been going. It's probably near on 6 months, isn't it?
We're on week 24. So yeah, pretty much. About 6 months, yes.
Right. And we had Fuchsia Nightfire on the show a few weeks ago, but together with Wizard of Chrome and I think it's really just the three of you, isn't it?
No, it's actually the first week was just me and Wizzy Ginoid. We were there together, and I thought, well, this will be fun, just the two of us, and it exploded from there. So that was Wizard, and then Wizzy, and then Fuchsia too. So the four of us organised
right.
the trip.
Because we quite often run on the channel here that lovely little video. I guess it was Fisher who probably put it up at the three. I think it's just three of you walking along.
Right. Pretty lost.
Yeah. But you, I mean, if we have time, it'd be nice to talk a little bit more in a while about some of the amazing destinations we've seen. I've been there most weeks, but it seems that the best destination is always covered on the weeks I haven't made it. And since I lost my OS Grid avatar, of course, Since I lost my OS Grid avatar, well, they're still down. Of course, I feel naked. You know, starting new avatars here, there, and everywhere with no kit, so to speak. But this week, actually, we started off, didn't we, in a rather unusual place called Second Life, which, of course, is not a hybrid grid.
Right.
Yeah. Because you've opened, and I gather we have Pathfinder to thank for this too. It's on his land, I believe, or something. But you've opened up, I guess it's the Hybrid Grid Safari Embassy, I guess.
Yes, that was an idea of Wizard Genoid's idea. She wanted to do that. She thought it would be a good way for us to reach a wider audience. Our target audience really is people who know Second Life very well and have a lot of experience here, but would like to know what the options are. So without trying to showcase one grid over the other, we try to help them find their way around. And so with it, it would be cool to have an embassy in Second Life, and she just asked around, and immediately I think 4 or 5 different people came forward with different proposals, and so very kindly Pathfinder gave us a piece of land, and Wizzy went to work and she built the embassy. So really hats off to her. She did a lot of work to make that happen.
Yeah, I logged out from there and I went back in. Well, twice actually. I even ended up there today when I logged in, and so I had to snoop around in the back, away from the party area. And she's done a wonderful job building that.
She really
it's quite an
has,
extensive little building. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, I just love the hypergate that's out of order. You know, that just says it. That just says it all to me. You know, you walk in there and there's this grandiose symbol of the hypergrid, and it's out of order, courtesy of Linda Labs.
I think there was some attempts by Second Life way back in probably Pathfinder, as you said in a minute, to actually do a hypergrid attempt many years back, and Wizzy was part of that group that did the jump. I don't know if they jumped to Reaction Grid or something, and the copy of the video of that is actually in the safe amongst any other things.
I noticed there's a thing on the wall about that. That was actually done in conjunction with IBM.
Yes.
And I did do the trip once. It was in the very early days. I mean, there was no hypergrid. It was simply a matter of choosing an OpenSim destination that IBM brought online. And the Lindens, you know, the group working on it, seemed to be quite enthusiastic about hopping backward and forward.
Those were exciting times.
They were, weren't they? Yeah, it was never quite as functional as it could be. And unfortunately, when I guess by the time Mark Kingdon had come on board, it was sort of more or less abandoned as, you know, in terms of prioritising their own platform. But yes, that was good stuff.
Sense. It'd be crazy for them not to do anything differently. But really, our idea is just to give people more options. So many people say that they've been to OpenSim, and then it turns out that they've been to, I don't know, Inworld or something, which is obviously, in a sense, part of OpenSim, but it's a very different feeling than you get if you can be in a grid that's open to hyper gridding and you can jump around to places. So we're just trying to give people an opportunity to realize what's out there.
Yeah, I must say, things like Craft Grid and Inworlds I haven't actually been to, except on very rare occasions, because although they're built on OpenSim, they do feel like they're closed worlds, a bit like Second Life. And you know, I think, how many
luckily Craft is open to them. I have to say, though, the Craft is on the Hypergrid and always has been really very keen on that. In fact, Cal Kwan, she's one of the people that is most active at promoting links between the different grids, and I really salute her for that. She works very hard to do that.
Yeah, sorry, actually, that was my mistake. It wasn't Craft Grid I was thinking of. There's another one that's very closed with its own population like Inworld.
I know what you mean. It does. It's just claustrophobic. Yeah. But you're used to jumping from grid to grid. It feels strange to be stuck in one grid. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me move over before we go into the greater conversation. I'm going to move over to, if I can find the right camera here. So, yes, there we are. Pathfinder. I call you Pathfinder. Of course, John Pathfinder Lester.
You can call me anything.
Yeah, once upon a time, a Linden, which is where the name Pathfinder originally surfaced, I guess. But it's funny, talking to Thirza, of course, I remember that a couple of years ago, you were, I think it's about 2 years ago, it might even be 3, you formed the Hypergrid Adventurers Club, which was another thing I remember attending a lot. I think that was a bit more formal, wasn't it? Whereas Thirza's, the emphasis with Thirza's Safari every week is really quite fun. Whereas back when we did the Adventurers Club, it was very targeted.
It wasn't fun?
No.
I'm teasing you.
It's always fun, but let's say it tended to be one destination.
That hurts me, Mal. That hurts me.
Oh, what have I said?
I'm wounded.
Take your foot out of your mouth, Mal.
He's organized, and we're chaotic. And
to be honest,
it was organized. It was different. It was fun, but we just don't know what we're doing, and he does. That's the difference.
It was, well, you know what it was? It was, well, first of all, I started the Hypergrid Adventurers Club in 2010, and it was pretty active for about 3 years, so about 2010 to 2012. And that was back in the day when, you know, there were no intergrid IMs over the hypergrid, and the hypergrid was blowing up more often than it was working when you were trying to jump between different grids. And there were also limitations, if you remember, about the coordinates in terms of you could only jump to other locations that were within a certain distance. So you had to make these intermediary hops. Right, and that was a real complex thing. You couldn't get from here to there without making some intermediate way station jumps. And it was more of a technical focus. It was, I used to host. We used to have little discussions about the technical side of things, and we had a lot of folks show up too who weren't technical focused, but it was definitely a rougher time. It was like we didn't even have horses. We were just walking in the middle of the deserts, and over time, things, the membership was dwindling a little bit, and I had some other stuff going on with work, and I was being pulled in different directions. So I kind of just sort of stopped doing it for a while. And then, fast forward then, basically, like a year and a half or 2 years later, and I hear about Thirza and Wizzy doing this hypergrid safari, and I was just blown away. It was just so fantastic to see this new group start with a very, with a different group of folks with different focuses and different priorities, and also people who were also very long-term and talented content creators and artists and writers in Second Life, and focusing on how to bring people from Second Life into this wider exploration of the metaverse, because that really was never, the Hypergrid Adventurers Club was more people who were already in Open Sim, but now the Hypergrid Safari is all about bringing people from, people who are also in Second Life, which is why I also got so excited about the idea of the embassy. Having a space here in Second Life to tell people about this.
Absolutely. When I wasn't implying that it wasn't fun, but you have a blog, Be Cunning and Full of Tricks, all
yes.
one word. I've got it right, haven't I? And in fact, what I was getting at there was something I think I read on your blog, because you actually wrote a review of the Hypergrid Safari, and I think you emphasised how much fun it was.
I'll put the link in Skype chat somewhere.
But
in our day, we used to have to, we have to eat our horses on the expeditions, and it was just. And in the winters, we'd have to, the cannibalism was terrible. We did some terrible things to survive back in my day. Yeah.
And we did tend to make one jump at a time, didn't we? With one meetup, and then we'd make, it would be. It was a long process to go on an extended tour, so it would tend to be one jump.
Believe me, Mal, it's no joke. I can really understand why Pathfinder did that, because to move people, I usually aim to have 3 destinations per week, and it's really chaotic herding the kittens from because there's always somebody who gets lost, and so we try not to leave anybody behind. But 3 destinations, I could tell you by the time the safari is over, all 4 of us are exhausted. So maybe one destination, maybe he's onto something there.
Yeah, I have to say, logging into the Safari, sort of, I've got it down from, as a 2-hour block, whatever, I think it's 8 p.m. my time, noon Second Life time. And, invariably, it's still going on well into the early hours for me. It goes this way. We will have, when this program actually appears up on the week in review in the week, it will be before this show. I have a little clip I talk of the opening of the embassy party. It's only about 1 minute long. I was having trouble getting audio, but we got some nice pictures of people like Tuna Oddfellow in his distinctive costume dancing away there.
A long time, was a very, very faithful member. Real life has caught up with him a little bit just now, but I know he'll be back. And I did want to mention that this week, exceptionally, we're actually going to a grid that's closed, one of the closed grids, which is Mickey, Kitty, Kitty. It's a fantastic grid. It used to be on the hypergrid. They took it off because they had some briefing issues. But I was able to speak to the 3 owners, who are just wonderful, and they're going to open it for especially the coming Wednesday. It'll be just a one-off event, so it's really not to be missed. They have a wonderful. It's a historic grid, of course. It goes back many years, and they have this fantastic bike ride thing you can do, and they're working on a zero gravity moon sim at the moment. So this is going to be a special trip for us. So we're all looking forward to that very much.
And what's the name of that grid again? I noticed our sound was a bit muffled on that.
Mickey, Kitty, Tiki.
Oh, right, okay. But you might want to type that in Skype because it's not easy to read out. Okay, well that would be great. I'm sure to be.
I heard Ricky Tikki Tavi. I don't know.
Well, I think it's taken for the 3 of their names because there are 3 of them and their names begin the same way. Mickey and Tiki.
This is almost as bad as our problem with everybody's grid having the word world in it. We're going to be coming up with all these grid names, and it's going to be like choosing confectionery or something. Is that one the one that's what? Never mind. Well, I think the great thing about having both you, Thirza, and you, Pathfinder, here is I thought, as well as general news, we could get into a bit of discussion about the variety of destinations that are actually available on the hypergrid. It's very popular, isn't it, with creators, because they have a freedom there that they don't have within a closed grid like Second Life. It's also very popular with the educators, and as Maria will tell us, when we look at the stats, there's a whole lot of invisible open sim installations that just are not public, but are being used for all sorts of educational and research uses. So between the old Adventurers Club and the new Safari, so to speak, we've sort of covered a lot of stuff over the years. But I'd actually like to, and Maria too, for this matter with Hyperica, the one of the portals with lots of gates in it. If we can sort of between the 3 of you identify really best examples of some of the places that really are out there on the hypergrid and open sim. I'm not quite sure where to start. Maybe you, Thirza?
The best examples of grids to visit, you mean?
Yes, yeah, and ones that are stuck in your mind, through your travels and things
Well,
like that.
I've always had a soft spot for craft. It's one of my favorite grids. It's the first grid, the first truly open sim grid that I had landed. And they have so much going on. They have so many events that really it's exceptional. The Safari has not been there as much as it might have been because they've been redoing their servers. So we've tried to stay away. As the group has grown larger, I'm much more cautious about bringing large groups and crashing people's places. But another really neat grid that I would recommend is Sanctuary, where Sanctuary has the gates. They have those fantastic gates, but there's also a grid behind those gates. And Lumiere Noir and Tosha Tyran, they have some fabulous sims, really worth seeing. I really love the Taj Mahal they have there, and they're getting into mesh now, so they're doing all sorts of things. I like Jamland, to be honest. It's just a little grid. It's very sweet, and it's fun to run about on. There's just so many, and there's something really for everybody. I think Maria will tell you the same. If you have an open mind and you try not to judge other people's views too much, you're just there as a tourist to see, and you open your mind and your eyes, there's just so much to see. And I think there's a place for everybody, really, and opens in that thing. Whatever you want to do, whatever kind of life you're interested in living virtually, you'll find a place with people ready there to welcome you.
You've in my OpenSim browser, the one Moses is the one I'm using at the moment. I have the favorites bar, fortunately, and Sanctuary, along with Hyperica and one other whose name I temporarily forget, are sort of in my favorites because I know I can always hop to one and get bored destinations to go to.
Absolutely.
And track down things I don't know. But I didn't know Lumiere Noir was involved with Sanctuary, and I think
he was on Craft for a very long time. From when Craft started, Lumiere was there, and he has lots of lovely buildings. Such a Superman too, very tidy. That was one of the first places we took to Safari, and I think Pathfinder was with us that day. Yeah, and we all sat on his Lumiere's brand new meshes that he's just getting into making mesh now.
I remember Metaverse TV had Metaverse Island at one point, and they had it's about 3 versions ago now, but they had a bill by him, which to this day I just remember as probably the best, twisting walkways and all sorts of things that, really inspirational stuff. It takes quite a visual mind to actually have come up with all that. So I must check out what he's doing on Sanctuary.
And of course, Metropolis too, let's forget. And I appreciate what Maria said. They really have taken this train and all of us showing up there, and we appreciate it. So there's some wonderful builds there too.
That's actually the other portal I've got on my favourites list. I think there's one in Metropolis which we visited. It's just full of gates to other places, although a lot of them are internal to Metropolis. But I'm fond of portals because you can just stand there and think, I am on top of a gate that goes anywhere and anywhere I want, So you just stand there and think, wonder where that gate goes to. Pathfinder, any favourites of yours? I mean, you of course, overriding all this, you do have an interest, not in development, but particularly educational type of projects and things. So can you think of any really brilliant examples of destinations on the hypergrid that really stand out? As best practice?
Part of the problem I have these days is I forget what grid I'm on.
Yeah,
I'm just like jumping all over.
Yeah,
and sometimes I'm like, oh, I thought I was still on Metropolis grid. Now I'm on Craft grid. Oh, now I'm somewhere else. And all of my trips start from my own private, but publicly accessible tiny grid, Pathlandia, which runs on a little computer in the corner here, and it often feels like I'm on a little raft in the middle of an ocean, and I log in there, and then I just jump from there to anywhere, and I have this board on Pathlandia where I just stick coordinates of places that are interesting that I want to visit, and sometimes I'll just go up to the board and I'll just click somewhere randomly, and appear somewhere. One place that just sticks in my mind, though, was a recent place that we visited with the Safari recently, and then we were there last week again, too, and I'll put it in Skype chat, but it's the Wonderland region on Metropolis Grid, and it's probably one of the just most amazing immersive virtual world experiences I've ever had, just because it's a giant room. It's very reminiscent to some of the stuff that you saw with Greenies and Second Life back in the day, but it's taken to a whole other level. There are so many little places you can explore. I found a whole house inside of a matchbox. The last time I was, it's unbelievable. And if you're the thing that impresses me so much about this particular region on Metropolis Grid is that by itself it is just a huge museum. Essentially, it's a work of art with a whole bunch of sub pieces of art within it. There's the art of this gigantic room that you're exploring, and then there's the art of all these tiny little places. You go into a Foot Locker under the bed, and there's a whole nother world, right? And it's all it's so professionally, beautifully done. With a mix of prim and sculpty and mesh, and everything is just so mind-boggling. And it was funny because for the longest time I couldn't even remember where it was. I just remember I had been there, and I'm like, I have no idea what grid it's on. I can't even remember where it was, and then it was only because we went back there last week with the Safari that I remembered it was on Metropolis Grid. But yeah,
I saw the photos of that one, and I was seriously pissed off, as the word goes, that I didn't make that week.
We'll go back. Don't worry, we'll be going back again and again. Brenda is such a wonderful artist, and she's such a kind person too. She's always so very happy that we've been. So yeah, we'll be going back because there's so many parts to it, aren't there, Pathfinder? You just even it doesn't matter how many times you've been there. It's always somebody to go and say, "Well, I never saw that. There's that in that room."
Yeah, it's like, oh, I can go inside that snow globe. I had no idea. There's another world in there, and I think it for me, it's special because it also, I think, represents a critical thing about what's really special about OpenSim is, and then that's basically that it's very easy to get large amounts of space, right? It's very it costs so much to have a single region, 65,000 square meters in Second Life, and in OpenSim you don't have that barrier, and then it allows people who have these grand visions to really just go crazy with it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I think platforms like Minecraft, for example, have really taken off, is that you can get huge amounts of land very inexpensively, and that really I just wish there was some way that could trickle down, that idea could trickle down into Second Life, because I think it still is just so. I don't want to start a whole discussion about land prices and tier and all that stuff, but it is, in OpenSim you have this freedom to be like, yeah, sure, I can get 10 regions, and then you can build something insane, and then you can build it as a mega region, so you don't even, it's not even, there are no boundaries to it. It's just one contiguous, uninterrupted space.
I remember there was a build in Second Life that you had to actually get a petite avatar, not even a tiny, it was a petite. And you went into this, and they built it to scale for the petite. So they've been able to make a standard block of land into something absolutely gigantic for the petite. But again, they have problems because you could have grandiose designs, but the prim cam ran out. So how much you can go microscopic if you like, but how much detail can you put in? And of course, OpenSim offers lots of potential there.
On the education side, I just do want to mention how powerful the whole sim on a stick thing is, because part of the the idea of being able to have your own private simulation running on a USB key. I know I've read about how there have been teachers who basically, it's trivial to buy USB keys. You can find them. They give them away at conferences now, like they used to give away CD-ROMs, right? And now, the idea of having all of your students have their own world on a USB key, and then when they turn in their projects, it could be just turn in your USB key, and I'll go and see what you've done in terms of building and scripting and so forth. That's so powerful. The ability to have completely offline environments, particularly for education, I think is something that is really fantastic. And having that functionality of just stick in this USB key and there's your viewer on the USB key and there's a whole simulator running on it is fantastic.
I do. Maria, any favorite grids from you while we're on that topic before I move on?
I used to love Mickey Tiki Teeny. I'm really sorry that it's off the hypergrid. I hope that they're able to lock it down and open up again. I know that the griefers are annoying, but I had a problem with Hyperica for a while. Every time the regions restarted or something, was different in the grid, that the permissions would change and the griefer would come back. I guess I don't know what he was doing, just stalking the grid, waiting for something to be reset, and then he'd get all these spheres all over the place. But that hasn't happened for a while. If you lock down your land so that strangers can't build and move stuff around, then you can keep stuff safe. And the other thing to do is to make backups of your regions, so that if you do see it happen, you just put it back to the way it was. So it is possible to have a small grid that's open to the hypergrid doesn't get griefed. And we finally, cross my fingers, knock on wood, have been getting that in place on Hyperica. I love that there's a new hyperport up on Soliton grid, and I have a gate up to it on Hyperica. It just opened up. It's very science fiction-y, so you feel like you're in space, and they have all these different grids to all different kinds of destinations, and they're grouped by category. And it seems to be a work in progress, but they've got a lot of stuff in there, so a lot of fun to explore. I really recommend that. I used to love LBSA Plaza because you can always find people there. It was like the crossroads of the metaverse, and I really miss having it there because a lot of places you go, unless you go with a safari group, you're going there and you're there by yourself, and it's pretty to look at, but it's like, oh, okay, what? So that's nice. It's like going to a museum that's like, if you're not going there to impress like a date, if you're just there by yourself, you have to be in quite exactly the right kind of meditative mood. Otherwise, it's really not much fun. You want to go on an opening night. You want to go with people, right? So I miss having that, knowing that there's always a place I can go where I can find somebody. But I'm hoping to address that. I'm pulling together all the calendars for all the grids that are hypergrid enabled and are exportable, and I've got them on Hyperica.com. So you can look at if you go to our website, on the front page in the sidebar, it shows you all the events that are happening right now, like in the next couple of days.
Yeah. I saw that. That's fabulous what you've done there, Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really great.
And all you have to do...
With things like Google Calendars, I tend to just add them willy-nilly, so I get all the highlights coming through in my one calendar.
If you have a grid that has a calendar, email it to me and I'll add it in. If you don't have a calendar, come on, it takes 5 seconds to set up a Google Calendar. There's really no excuse not to do it. If you don't have to, it doesn't have to be Google Calendar. There's other calendar plugins for the web that you can use that are exportable too. But Google Calendar is just free and easy, and it's really convenient. So please get a calendar up. A lot of people, not just me, subscribe to calendars to stay on top of what's going on their favorite grids. Make it easy for people to do that, because then you get the alerts, you get the all that stuff that goes with having a calendar subscription. So please do that. There's something like 150 grids right now that are hypergrid enabled. And this is the grids that I know about. I don't know about all the grids. Obviously, I don't know about people's private grids, that it's just like them and their friends. And I don't know, because they're not publicizing it.
But this is one of the, criticisms of OpenSim and the hypergrid all along has been that, people come to Second Life still because of the community, and it's so easy to log into OpenSim and there's nobody there. But you need to know sort of where to look. And, the idea that, with the Explorers Club and the Hypergrid Safari, you know, it is so much of that is the fact that a group of people meet up and go together to experience these things and sort of spread the word. And you know, people have different reactions to different things, and it all comes out in the conversation, the variety.
You know what I think we need? I was thinking about this the other day because somebody brought up. I have the link here too. Remember this device, the Radeon? I can't pronounce it.
Yes.
That basically allowed.
Yeah,
that was.
It was an IM. It was an IM which got raised in different grids. And
it was a way for you to. Well, it was also. It existed right now in OpenSim. You have the ability to have IMs between people on different grids. That function is there now. You can have some. When I log into OpenSim, my own person. When I log into my Pathfinder grid, I see on my friends list a bunch of people, and they're all different grids, and I can actually send them IMs, and you can transfer inventory, and it all works most of the time really well.
Oh, John, I could set up a Hyperica group of events and send out announcements to everybody in that group that there's an event coming up on the hypergrid, and anybody can stop by Hyperica, sign up to that group, and get on the events list. Huh.
I think I don't know if the group announcement stuff works because I actually haven't played with that. But if that worked, that would be awesome.
I've tried to make that work and it doesn't work.
I've actually passed. You were there on, when was it, Tuesday, when we went when I came to the stress test. And I did notice quite a few glitches there. I think you may have been one of them. I think I friended you, and then you weren't. Although you're online, you didn't show us online when I was on another grid, the Abercon grid or something.
It's still
groups. Yeah, and there are actually groups that you can join that basically work like Second Life groups, but across grids. But they didn't always seem to quite work.
But what I would love to see.
The Radeon idea is a great one.
Yeah, because that also would allow people to talk. I mean, the trick is, I think, there are two things that have been just bouncing around in my head. One is, this Radeon device. If it could come back, that would be fantastic because it would be great to be able to talk to people across the hypergrid while you're in Second Life. I think, and vice versa, and that would be something great. I think at like the Hypergrid Safari Embassy, to give to people. Hey, you want to talk to people on OpenSim while you're still in Second Life? Here, wear this thing in Second Life, and then when people go on the grid, when people go on the Safari excursions, they'll be able to talk to people in Second Life. But at the same time, the whole idea of like having the ability to find people in general who are across OpenSim. I would love to see in OpenSim something like a world chat channel. Right, something that was built into OpenSim that would allow you to join as a group a channel that anyone who's running any hypergrid-enabled OpenSim grid could join. Because the idea of going into an environment and basically having a general chat channel that is enabled for anybody who wants to join it on any grid would really facilitate this sense of who's out there and where are they and how can I connect to them. Because the first thing is you have to just find out there are people out there and give people a chance to opt in to a system that allows them to talk to other people in a sort of big world encompassing group chat.
I guess you can create a client to one of the IRC hypergrid groups, like OpenSim users or something like that.
Yeah. I guess I would like to see that as something built in, because it would be something potentially, a game changer, something that this is something that doesn't exist in Second Life, right? And I think this is a key idea of something that needs to develop in OpenSim to allow it
to be scalable if it was built in.
I don't think.
Because right now we only have a few thousand users, but when we have a few million users, that's not really kind of feasible.
There are ways you can there are ways you can build scalability, and I mean there are MMOs have this concept. MMOs like Lord of the Rings Online have a group chat for. An open chat for anybody on any particular server or groups of servers you can actually connect. And so, I think it's the technical stuff can be figured out. I think it would be something that would be very useful though to just start building a sense of community, because that is the most common complaint that people who first come to OpenSim say is like, where is everybody? I can't find anybody to talk to.
And they say that about Second Life too.
Yeah, I mean, somebody mentioned IRC chat a minute ago, which is if you can, I was never one for really using that. I had to figure it out. We have one here for the channel, for example, but I have and I've had, and I don't use them very much anymore. I've got better ways of doing things. Sort of different ways of doing things, but I will wear a HUD in here that constantly allow me to Twitter or see my Twitter streams coming up through chat. And you've got to remember, all I was actually wearing was a device that allowed me access to something that was actually completely outside Second Life, or would be outside OpenSim. So, when you're talking about scaling, if you have some kind of chat system which is dedicated to the metaverse or whatever, then it might simply be a matter of creating a HUD or some other kind of plugin system that allows it to be delivered to you while you're in world. So I'm not, when it comes to that kind of communication, I don't, I think there's probably easy ways around the scaling. And while I think of it, because I forgot to mention this earlier, I did come across and registered for yet another Avatar social network during the week called Second Book. I think it is secondbook.org. And, they have forums. It certainly shows up in my forum sort of reader, like SL University and stuff like that. And, of course, the Avatar social network, it's called, I think, isn't it? Seems to be going in leaps and bounds with opportunities for you to upload things and whatever. And I'm all for these things because I don't see any reason they can't devise plugins for them to work. Somebody creates a HUD that you can get in your OpenSim viewer and a HUD that you can get in your Second Life viewer that actually reads and sends the same content to an external source. I think all that can be managed quite easily, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've hijacked the conversation again, haven't I?
One more destination I wanted to mention as an example of a group thing. We've talked about them before. Nara's Nook. Yes. I love that little grid. And I myself am a writer, so I love this. They have regular events for writers where you can come in and you can do book readings, you can do short story readings, or you can just sit and work just in a cafe and type, with other writers around you. So I thought that was very cool. And I love that idea of a tiny little grid and wherever you live on the hyper grid, you can just teleport in and you can hang out with people. And I really enjoy that.
But that actually is a great example of a group where you can go to, and as you say, there are likely to be people there. So it is changing. And I can't think of my topics either, but that would have been one of mine. For some reason, I subscribe, there's Senchai Library when, I think that's the pronunciation, in Second Life. But of course, that's over on President Says on OpenSim 2. On Kitely, and I think she's she's somewhere else as well. Gets around, that lady. But I think I probably just like you. I automatically subscribe to feeds from writer events. I rarely get to half of them, but just the fact that they're there, the idea of online book clubs for discussion or storytelling and things like that appeals to me. And Nara's Nuke, I just love the idea that the writers can be there, and some of the writers there are actually quite well known, but they're not really known in, say, Second Life as avatars. They're just gone there because of what that community is, and they make little they've got little partitions of their own where they can create something that illustrates a novel they're working on, or interactive things to enhance the whole things they're doing as writers. So I love that stuff. Mm-hmm. I keep imagining grandiose schemes for Sims that I could never build. I can simply think them up, What is it? The ones I like are the ones I come into and think, oh yes, I wish I'd done this. But
that's one of my favorites. I just love the idea of it. I love the scale of it. It's small, it's cozy, but it does what it needs to do, and it's really friendly. And I love that. The other one I wanted to mention, and because I've been fixing my gate scripts, so I keep falling through the gates. and I fall through the gates. I end up these random places. And for example, I went through the gate to Franco Grid by mistake. I wasn't intending to go there. They have an awful welcome region that I did not particularly want to visit. And I fell through, and their welcome region was totally different. It's this surreal science fiction landscape with water and ice and weird creatures floating in the air around you. Like, wow. I hadn't been back there in like a couple of years. So I was like, oh, boring Franco Grid. It's like a little conference center with a meeting room. And you land on the side of a hill, like halfway down. It's really badly arranged. Oh, it's an awful welcome region. And now it's like, oh my God, it's astounding. This is gorgeous. So I really enjoyed visiting that. And if you haven't been back to Franco Grid, they're the French grid. I really enjoyed visiting that. I was like, wow, that's
oh, right,
so
nice. You're talking about the whole grid rather than the a particular location, aren't you?
No, the welcome region.
redid their welcome area, and also Le Village, which is where they have their meetings. And again, it's very surreal and beautiful. Lots of mesh. It's very well done. Cherry Mango did it.
Yeah, you go to hc.francogrid.com:8002 without giving a region name, and you land in their welcome area. Well, it's like the homepage of a website. It's like the welcome region of a website, of welcome region of a grid, and it's just stunningly beautiful. I was super impressed. I mean, I love their website redesign too. I've been highlighting that for a while, but it was awesome. It was just really awesome.
Last time I actually teleported into Hypergrid, I got a bit of a shock. I think maybe they're rebuilding or something, but I just found myself on an island that led into a neighbouring sim that seemed to be an old village and stuff like that, and it just seemed to end. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. I was definitely on Franco Grid, but
there are lots of artists. There are lots of artists on Franco Grid, and I remember too their Franco Grid had their pavilion at the Open Simulator Community Convention last year, and it was just this tower full of art. So I think that they're really expanding, the reach of the artists, so that even now when you just go there, the default place you land in is basically a giant art installation. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
A good place to go for freebies and stuff too, or it used to be Sunday in the early days for picking up essentials.
Yes, they have lots of brand new mesh avatars there, which are original to Franco Grid. They had a festival, I guess it was about 7 or 8 months ago, where all the residents of Franco Grid put up some ideas for mesh avatars, and they're all free, copyable, so you can find them on the grid. But it's really worth going because there's always something new on offer there too. In their store, that's Le Village. If you don't find it on Welcome Sim, go to Le Village.
Great. Well, something else I thought I'd like to bring up into this conversation. Well, I've got two of you here, Pathfinder Thirza, that is we often discuss on this show, the metaverse in general, particularly the hypergrid, of course, being as is the biggest equivalent of an actual interconnected metaverse. But of course, there are a number of new things on the horizon, not to mention Next Generation SL. But Philip Rosedale working on High Fidelity, of course, which seems, from what he talks about, to have quite a lot of aspects to the interconnectedness of the hypergrid that seem to have taken his fascination, I think. He always said there weren't enough people there for him to want Second Life to be on it, but clearly the idea of that, I think he's calling them namespaces, and the idea that you'll be able to move between different places, even via the web or through a viewer of some sort, has captured his fancy. Now he's going to be, of course, at the OSCC delivering a keynote, which should be fascinating. But I'm just interested in Pathfinder, especially, but Thirza, you too, and your thoughts about new platforms coming along that are potentially, I'm not going to include things like Unity, which are kind of standalone installations really, or FastPark, which is the same at the moment. But the potential for new platforms to come along. I mean, the next generation Second Life is clearly being built so that it will work on iPads and Androids, and there'll be a version that you can access from everywhere. Which is why it will be so different. There'll probably be a lot of mesh, but we don't know about voxels or other things yet. And high fidelity too. And I'm just I'm interested in your thoughts on the direction it's taking. I don't know whether either of you are helping with beta tests or anything, and obviously you've got to keep your mouth shut if you are. but in general, your thoughts on all that. Maybe I'll start with you, Pathfinder.
Oh, sure. Well, in terms of high fidelity, I think of high fidelity as a underlying technology development lab, right? They're developing these core technologies that facilitate, for example, increased emotional bandwidth between people by having real-time facial gestures transferred into avatar facial expressions and things like that. And I think there's obviously some really interesting underlying architecture ideas that Philip has about how it's very much a peer-to-peer kind of environment, which I think is interesting. But to be honest, I think it's just way too early for me from myself at least, to start thinking really about where things are going to go in terms of potential, like with high fidelity. Are they going to be creating a world? Are they going to have a technology that's going to be embraced by companies like Linden Lab, or are they going to be releasing certain components of their technology that's open source? Personally, it just feels really way too early to even for me to speculate too much on it. I like to think far out there, but I also like to look at where things are right now and how things seem to be evolving. And
I'm
I think
perfectly
it's
comfortable
interesting.
speculating.
Yeah. Well,
I remember, because he gave the speech this summer where he talked about the fact that it's distributed, the servers are open source, but there are some centralization aspects. Like, for example, the destination names are centralized. So on the hypergrid, there's no central repositories there's no directory of destinations. Nobody keeps track of it. So on high fidelity, that's going to be centralized. And something about currency being centralized and a marketplace being centralized. In an open sim, all of that is totally decentralized. All the grids are totally standalone. They don't have to answer to anybody for anything. Personally, I like the open sim approach better. I think that in terms of a long-term perspective, the more federated and decentralized you are, the more independent everybody is, the better off you are, because you don't have single points of failure, and because you're able to have more competition. So that's why I'm not particularly anxious about the Second Life version number 2. I mean, it's just like an upgraded version of AOL. I mean,
I agree with Maria completely. Yeah. It's exactly like that. It's the wonderful thing about OpenSim, the way it is now, is that there's every possible imaginable type of grid out there. The unreliable ones, the good ones, the small ones, the big ones, the ones that are in it for the money, the people who are just in it for fun, the people who care about the technical side, and the people who care more about the social side. There's every kind, and I like it like it is. And when he's finished his product, he's got rid of all the bugs. It'd be great to see it, but before then, I'm not really that bothered.
I think the key thing is the interconnectedness in my mind. I think whatever new platforms blossom that exist as multi-user immersive 3D environments where you have essentially in situ content creation. You log into the world and you build your stuff right in the world, or maybe upload mesh, but you have this shared experience of instantiating completely new content in the environment. Whatever the future holds, it really needs to be interconnected in some way. And so, I have a dream for the spiritual successor to Second Life, and it involves some kind of hypergrid connectivity, right? Go back to those early early experiments that were done with IBM and Linden Lab, and look at how you can give people the ability to, maybe you still have some closed, some closed grids and some walled gardens, but if you at least have paths that allow you to go from the walled garden to some other garden, I think that's a big step. And I gotta say, the folks at Kitely, they understand that concept. You look at the Kitely marketplace now, and you have content creators being able to list content and say, I want this to stay on the Kitely grid, or I want to let it flow wherever it wants to go. And you have this understanding that you can have a combination of interconnected environments where content moves from one grid to another, and also I don't mean to be pejorative, closed, but walled environments where the content can't leave it, and that's fine. Everyone makes their own decisions, but as long as you can move between them, your identity can move between them. That would be fantastic. Because I would love to. I wouldn't care if I would love to just be able, from Second Life, to jump onto the hypergrid and maybe have a separate suitcase that I can't access in Second Life, or maybe parts of it that I can access. I don't care. I think this interconnectivity is going to be the future, and any new platform needs to embrace it, because if it doesn't, it's going to go nowhere, in my opinion.
That's very much my thought, but then, in fact, that is why I'm very interested in these new systems. I had a desktop virtual environment called Rooms, that run under Windows, and it allowed me to customize just like I do in Second Life, except the links would go to launch applications or to launch folders and things. And whenever I wanted to launch Second Life from that, the actual Rooms desktop had to close down, because going into Second Life meant firing up a whole new graphics engine. So they weren't compatible. I think, to a certain extent, Second Life and OpenSim are compatible on that front, which is great if they ever do connect. But you have other systems like Vastpark Queues, where again you can you use the equivalent of a web address to get to. It's not an interconnected world, although they wanted it to be one. To actually jump to the location. But I'm just dying to have a hypergrid or a metaverse viewer that will somehow understand the nature of the different environments that I might teleport to and adjust itself accordingly.
Definitely.
And, one thing I liked, I think when you were talking, Maria, about what Fitz said last year, that was the one I filmed of him talking in Moses, wasn't it? He visited Moses and gave a complete rundown.
He visited Moses.
And I got the impression that everything he had in mind, the peer-to-peer aspect of the people sort of, being logged in almost as a server, a peer-to-peer sort of system, infinitely scalable. But when he was talking about the centralized things, I got two impressions. He's thinking very modular, from what I could see. In other words, asset servers, currency servers, and all these things would plug in to the system and be maintained as separate entities. And I don't think he specifically, I remember he's saying they hadn't decided yet which of the ones they wanted to hang on to, kind of thing. Will High Fidelity be a currency server, or will High Fidelity be an asset server?
That was the whole core of the business, though, is that High Fidelity would hang on to some of them, and that was going to be how they're going to make their money.
But I really feel there's another element we're missing here altogether, which is this is great. There's all this technical stuff he's thinking out, all the strategies of how to write the code and everything. There's a huge element that's missing from the discussion, and that is the human element. Because a lot of people have chosen to go into OpenSim because, with all due respect to him, they want to get away from Philip Rosedale. They don't want to be part of anything he's doing. And speaking as someone who organizes a safari, when I present myself to people and say, I'm bringing people from Second Life, you would be amazed how many people's first reaction is no thank you. I have talked them in to letting us onto their grids, frankly, because a lot of people feel that Second Life is just this enormous steamroller. It has values that they don't agree with. It has a history that they find unpleasant. And so the last thing they're going to do is sign up for any kind of globalized globule of technology. They're going to want to carry on having their independent regions, their independent worlds, and doing their own thing.
But don't those two things actually, at the end of the day, can't they be sort of side by side? I mean, I have huge communities in Second Life. You know, I've a million blogs I get every day from the fashionistas selling and designing kit and stuff like that. That could really only happen in Second Life, and I don't think those people are going.
It will happen,
but other people are in Second
Life. Eventually, I mean, AOL was in the same situation. AOL was huge, the web was nothing, but you know, things change. But I want to remind you, Mel, that remember when we talked about GameFace? Their CEO specifically has been in contact with High Fidelity and with Linden Lab, and when they plan to launch with a rooms metaphor where you can take your GameFace avatar with the GameFace 3D interface, and with that avatar and that interface, visit all of OpenSim, Second Life, and High Fidelity. So he plans to have support for all three with one avatar when he launches. I don't know if he will succeed or not, but I love that idea. And do we have time to get to my sneak preview thing?
But before we do your sneak, I was going to say Mal, before we do the sneak preview, it looks like Pathfinder needs to depart, so maybe give him a couple of minutes before he needs to go take care of his dog.
Yes, certainly. I was also thinking we must get Bruce Joy from Fastpark on this show at some point, because, of course, he's one of the people behind the Open Avatar project, which, again, is not centralized, but the idea of an independent system that you can take certain aspects of your avatar and inventory anywhere you want to go, be it on the web or installations or standalone. But yes, Pathfinder, let me find your camera again. Right, well, it's been great having you here, Bart. So, anything exciting happening that you'd like to get us up to date on and things like that before you have to leave?
Sure, yeah, I apologize. My dog is giving me the look, you know.
I think I actually heard him at one point, and I mistook him for the bear, Tara's bear, but it wasn't to be.
Let's see. Well, the one thing I wanted to mention was, if you follow my Twitter feed or LinkedIn or anything, is that you know that I'm actually helping Jeffrey Ventrella at Wiggle Planet on some really interesting augmented reality meets artificial life stuff that he's working on. And this is something that I'm doing on the side. I'm still at Reaction Grid, still doing a lot of Unity-based development and creating mostly development work, projects with educators, creating specific simulations for them, and a lot of this stuff is really, all of it is not open to the general public. It's for use in different academic environments, so there's not a lot of public stuff happening. But check out wiggleplanet.com. There's the link. And I did a little blog about what these creatures are. Just so you know, Jeffrey Ventrella worked at Linden Lab. He's the guy who was responsible for FlexiPrims, and also all of the avatar gestures when you're talking, and some other modifications to the avatar system. And he's been working on artificial life projects for years and years, and I'm helping him out with some community development and really some creative advisor work. But that's exciting stuff. There's some apps you can download onto your iOS devices. Android stuff will be coming eventually, but I'd be happy to talk more about that sometime in the future. But it's
okay. Is that well, is this sort of script-generated kind of life form creation sort of stuff, or does it involve AIs in any way? Or is it involves
AI stuff. It involves basically creatures that are self-directed and self-animating. So they do things like they evolve. They have DNA. They figure out how to walk in different environments, and it's an augmented reality focus. It's a little hard to explain in an elevator pitch, but I guess the best.
Well, I can
one.
Sorry, I can go for a walk in my local park in the cat avatar. Yeah.
There you go. But it's really in a sentence. It's really free-range, self-animated creatures at the intersection of virtual and real. So it involves augmented reality, and artificial life. And there are these little characters that could be parts. They could be used. They'll be able to be used in games. They'll be able to be used in, I think, fully virtual environments as well as augmented reality. But that's the stuff I'm working with him, and it's great to just be working with him again, because he and I used to have lunch all the time whenever I was out in San Francisco, while he was at Linden Lab. And of course, he's the Jeffrey's before Linden Lab. He was basically the technical brains behind there.com. He was to there.com what Corey was to Linden Lab, basically. The chief technical person.
Oh, great. Well, maybe we'll get you back and maybe get him along too, if he's agreeable.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
That'd be
fun. This is still very early stuff, stuff, But that's what I'm really excited about, that I'm working on the side. Cool stuff.
Great. Oh, well, we'll let you get off. We'll move the camera discreetly away from you so you can do a vanishing act.
Thanks for having me on here.
Great to have you, Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. I'm glad I could pop in.
Yeah, love to have you back in the near future. So, and of course, we'll be seeing you at OSCC, of course. So.
Oh yeah, and on the Hypergrid Safari, I'm a huge fan. So thank you again, Thirza, for getting that going. Thirza writes great summaries of all the Safari expeditions too on her blog. So just be sure to follow that. All right, take care.
Okay, well, thanks again, and good to see you, and we'll see you soon. Okay, so I'll move to Maria. Yes, wrong camera. I'm doing it again. Wrong camera. Here's Maria. Now, the big finale from Maria.
The big finale.
The big news.
Big news. It's not big news. There's a little preview. It's just like medium-sized news, but it's fun news. It combines my two favorite things. First of all, is breedables. I love the idea of breedables, and I'm really, really disappointed that we don't have them in OpenSim. And my other thing that's my favorite topic is AviWorlds, because it's so much fun to talk about them. Well, AviWorlds is now the first grid to have breedables. They have breedable turtles.
Oh my god.
This is what I'm going to be writing about this coming week, is breedable turtles on AviWorlds. So
another good reason not to go to AviWorld.
So I'm trying to get all the information about how this works, the logistics of it, and what are they going to do with these turtles, and how people can interact with them. It sounds like such a fun thing to
Can we
do.
shoot them? That's my question. Can we kill them? Will guns be supplied? That sounds like an easy target.
Yeah, because they move slowly.
Slow. I could do that. I could get that. That's a question is high there.
Well, so I'm really excited about that.
And these will be all over the hypergrid, I take it, will they? Or will they
Please no.
From what I'm hearing about right now is that they're going to be local for AviWorld. So you can come and look at them, but if you want to get involved in breeding turtles, you have to be local. So,
and who doesn't, right?
But I'm going to get all the details later on this week. So that's the preliminary information I'm getting, is that they were built by Josh Bohm of Skylife Grid. This is the savior who came in to save AviWorlds.
Yeah.
And he built these breedables, and these are the first major breedables in OpenSim. And I am really, really looking forward to how that's going to work, and finding out more details about it and writing about it. I'm trying to pull information out of people, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth. They'll answer in these monosyllables, yes, no, maybe. Like, come on, give me some color, give me some, give me a tool.
So give you a talking point.
I can tell you the facts of life. That's what they're doing. They're afraid to tell you about the birds and the bees.
Well, I'm taking it, Maria, that you do not include Inworlds as part of OpenSims.
Oh, I should, I guess, but
we never do.
Do they have breedables in Inworld?
Well, yeah, the folks, the Oyo, who introduced dodos into Second Life, which dodos have been subject to some rather severe issues in Second Life. is actually started off in Inworlds, where I think they have horses and cats as well as dodos.
Okay.
But that's just in Inworlds.
So I'll make. Okay, so good to know. So instead of saying first breedables in OpenSim, I will lead the article with first breedables on the hypergrid. For those of us who are out there on the public.
Yeah, well, that's what so just so you know that at least they have been. If they haven't gone completely belly up, as my 3 dodos have, because they didn't get fed. They're all sort of frozen. I put some more food out. I presume that they'll recover in due course. That's the trouble with breedables.
I wonder how many people will launch copybots trying to nick turtles.
The thing is with OpenSim, and I'm really shocked that nobody has done this yet. With OpenSim, you can write applications, you can write code that only runs on your grid. So you can write modules that create new scripting commands like feed me or reproduce that will only work on your grid. So that if somebody steals a breedable, they'll have a script that's useless because none of the commands in it work on any other grid. So you have to come back to that grid of origin in order to say feed the animal or breed it. Yeah. And that's a great opportunity for a grid to get its brand out there to the entire hypergrid and get people coming back to the grid over and over again. And I'm really surprised that nobody has done this because there's so many developers out there in OpenSim. There's so many people who are good at this. And that would be a really fun thing to do.
Well, the thing actually that surprises me is that your typical breedable, in fact, is running offline. Is running on independent servers.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where your inventory is. That's what controls. The random. Or the Mendelian random, what kind of a kitty, dodo, dog you get.
Yeah. I think the only drawback I see to this, quite honestly, is the concept of land. I mean, if I've got a virtual pet, say in Second Life, I have to have somewhere to reside on. And the idea
that's never a problem.
no, it's not. It's not as such, but I'm unlikely to want to actually rent or buy a reservoir area on just one sim. I'm going to want to take the breedables and actually take them to my own sim. Right. And there was a similar thing happened in Second Life many years ago. Somebody I used to know quite well, I don't think she's in World anymore. She was running Virtual Africa or something of that name. And it was a lovely build, wildlife and everything else. And when you visited her, you could actually buy giraffes and buy lions and buy all sorts of things. And they'd react with you and follow you. And I don't know whether any were breedable, but you could certainly interact with them. But you have them in your inventory, but you weren't able to take them anywhere else in Second Life. So if you wanted to go and play with them or whatever, you always had to go back to this Virtual Africa. And I think the traffic just sort of drained off after a while because although it was a lovely idea, you had to go to that sim or group of sims to actually enjoy the experience and pull these things out of your inventory. And they were yours. They were named after you, but, the novelty wears off after a while. I mean, it would always be a good place to visit, especially for somebody first time. But how often, you don't really want to have to go to Virtual Africa 3 days a week to check your critters.
You're making an excellent point, Mal. When I start my breedable company for the hypergrid breedables, I'm going to make it so people can take it home to their own regions and grow them. And then I'm going to make money by having shows and expos to sell breedable accessories and have best of show, exhibitions of people.
You can make even more money, Maria. I'm going to pay you not to do it. All right.
Well, the thing to remember, Maria, the real money to be made in breedables is in food.
Is the food.
Is food.
The food. Yeah.
That's where
take something like Sea Cats. It's all on a end, but it's all about food. You know, you buy a cat, and that's the start of your journey. You end up eating more.
Yeah,
More
well,
cats, and then you've got to go and spend
and
food, honestly.
and the thing is, in the the breedables that work well, you can sell what you breed, what you create. You can, almost all of the critters can be sold to other people, and they're one off, so it's a one of a kind. So you can't clone the same critter without having it, another one birthed that's identical, which is pretty hard to do. But the one thing that, at least speaking for kitty cats, there's no affiliate program or anything relative to kitty food. The only place you can get it is from kitty cats, and you can't give it away either. So that's the gotcha. Now the second thing is, in good breedable programs too, they also will have an option where you can, for a price, you can get a script which makes them an ageless. Yeah, no, ageless. In other words, you pay a certain amount and then they never have to eat again. And Firestorm, for example, the last 2 years has had anniversary kitty cats in Second Life, and those have been of the sort that don't need food. But those are also one-offs. You can't sell them and you can't give them away. You own them, and you can't give them to somebody else. So
we even have one of them on the. We have one of them.
Well, we have two. We have ones. The ones I picked up the last 2 years for the anniversaries, but. And so those are really good for people who really like kitty cats, because kitty cats are very cute, but really don't want to deal with the hassle of having to keep food around and keep paying for it.
Yep. Okay. I'm making notes here.
Yeah.
Just write 3 words for you. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's all you need to write.
I'm gonna have.
Okay, I'd like to give a plug. As I said, this coming week safari is Mickey Kitty Kiki, which is a closed grid. Normally, they're opening it especially for us on a one-off basis next Wednesday night. The following Wednesday is French Week. We're going to have 3 francophile events, including a live concert as our middle event. So I really encourage everybody to come along. And there'll be more details up on Facebook and in our various usual places, Google Plus as well. So two really good weeks, and then of course we're coming up to the conference, which will be fun too. I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Okay, when you're here, the safari aside, you are still quite active here in Second Life, aren't you? Along with Fisher and the rest. Is there anything you're doing in World here that you'd like to talk about?
I very rarely come into Second Life, to be honest. I'm very happy to hand everything over to see. He's running the embassy, which looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. We're hoping to do quite a few events there. But obviously, our main focus is in the open sim environment. But we will be having more things going on, more dances, and just trying to raise awareness to people. And the only thing I can announce from here is that we're going to be doing a thing called Safari Confidential, which is that a lot of people, when they think about coming to open sim, they really don't want to come on Safari because they have a new avatar, they have weird hair and issues like that, and so they would like to sort of discreetly sort out their avatar before presenting themselves in a public environment. So the idea is that anybody who would like to be accompanied a little bit, shown where the stores are, shown where the mesh clothes are and so forth, and just sort of have a little bit of sympathy in the appearance department, they can contact me and we'll sort out somebody to accompany them and help them hold their hands through those first steps. And we're calling that Safari Confidential.
Brilliant, Thirza. I love it.
I think I'll be on that too, because every time I log into the Safari, I seem to be in a different avatar from a different grid, because my main avatar is still offline. And, I feel the same way. I'm turning up and I think, I look like a noob.
I know what you mean. It's
I
all
got
of
the
us find
default
the same
avatar.
situation.
Yeah.
But there's so much lovely stuff out there. You just need, it's just nice to have somebody to go with to just find the stores. And then the idea is that once we've shown you, then you, as a way of paying back, we don't have money in OpenSim mostly. So the idea is, how do you pay someone? Well, you pay by paying it forward. You've been helped, now you help somebody else. And that way we spread it around.
Good idea. So it's just like a network of friends to help you get your foot on the ground. If it wasn't for Fleep Grid and Fleep 2, I don't know what I'd do. I'd be naked at every event. She's got a nice lineup of, costuming, shall we say. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're getting to the point where we can sort of start wrapping up. We're reaching the sort of 2-hour point. One more post that I have got that I haven't even gone near the Second Life doodahs this week again. Too many Twitter streams, really. But this one is a blog I don't really know called Tea and Strumpets. Yeah, that's a good name for a blog, isn't it? Yes, tnstrumpets.com. This post is called Behind the Scenes with Geeked Out Fairy Tales, and I remembered this because we were talking about authors and Narvis Nuke and stuff earlier. It's just a rather fun read. It starts off with the authors of Greyville Writers Con who get quiet, full of empty streets and blah blah blah. You know something is up, and they've gone to the Metaverse Authors group on G+, and said that's creepily silent. But then she's presented this a bit like a puzzle, really, and then goes on down at the end. And what I was quite interested is, I haven't got this myself, but she quotes a press release from somebody called Tina Glasnek saying that joining forces, Siobhan Muir, Nara Malone, Shannon Albright, Shara Lalel, Courtney Sheets, Tracy Olmsted, there's no good one, Fuchsia Nightfire, and Endora Twinklins all join together and will present interactive demonstrations showing the possibilities available when using the OpenSim platform for creative endeavors. And you'll have to follow that link. I personally can't actually see any link within the page to go to. Actually, it could be referring to something they're doing at the OSCC. Right, I'm not sure. But anyway, interesting little blog out there. I love the title, Behind the Scenes with Geeked Out Fairy Tales. Okay. So, anything from you, Maria, that we didn't cover? I know we sort of rushed straight into the highlight news, didn't we?
Yeah. So, first of all, you mentioned Vast Park earlier on the show, and I realized that I hadn't heard anything from them for a while, so I looked them up. The company behind it has switched to doing Unity and WebGL development. The open source software hasn't had an update released in 2 years, and it looks so. And the Open Avatar project doesn't look like it's gone anywhere. It looks like they're doing corporate Unity stuff, like corporate simulations. So it didn't catch on. It was a kind of a weird hybrid of a product, It didn't really have the strength behind like a Protosphere or one of the other big ones. So it kind of and they were on Australia, so I think that really hurt their sales as well. So they've become like just a small custom development shop doing Unity products. Yeah,
I actually know Bruce Joy, the CEO, quite well, so I just haven't spoken to him for a couple of years, so I should give him a call and find out what they're doing. But he originally was planning to build something a bit like a Second Life, back in the early days when I first met him, and we talked for about a whole night actually about his dreams. But it did end up becoming an enterprise client thing, and in a sense, I'm not surprised that maybe their customers have asked for Unity. So we'll see. Yeah.
And so the other thing that I'm working on this week that maybe people can help me with is I have sort of a long-term plan. Later on this year, I'm going to do a survey of people's favorite destinations, like your favorite freebie places, your favorite, whatevers. And so I'm looking for people to give me nominations of destinations. And I'm starting out this week with visiting a whole bunch of freebie places to just give people an idea of what's out there, to get the ball rolling on this in anticipation of doing a survey. Because in order to do a survey where people vote on their favorite destinations, they have to have the opportunity to visit them first. So so that's going to be my long-term project for the rest of the year, is finding all these cool stuff. What are the best museums on the hypergrid? What are the best stores on a hypergrid? What are the best, breedable turtles on a hypergrid, whatever, and put those together in little articles, and give people an opportunity to kind of, and hopefully to generate some more exploratory activity as well. So if you have a nomination for a place, please email me, get that to me. I'll get it into the story. I'll get it on the survey as well. And then the other thing I'm going to be working on is the upcoming hosting provider survey. If you're a hosting provider and nobody knows about you, let me know who you exist so I can tell people so you can get some customers. Duh, right? Yeah. I know some technology people really believe that if they just make a product, that people will magically show up. People don't have ESP. They're not going to find out about you until you tell somebody. So tell me. My email is maria@hypergridbusiness.com. I'm always looking for stuff to write about, and and the vendor listings are free. The ads in Hyperica are free, and there are some stores in Hyperica that are free. So you can put up a little kiosk to tell people about your grid or about your mall or about your museum or whatever. Contact me, get that set up while it's still early days and space is available. And that's it for me.
Great. Oh, very, very good. I was just thinking, actually, if you want some help on that and somebody to keep you company searching for these things, give me a ping on Skype. My new avatar needs to be kitted out, so he needs to go searching for food.
Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. We'll email each other, find out when you're available, and then we'll start. We'll do our own mini safari. We'll do a freebie safari.
Yeah. Well, the easiest thing is just ping me on Skype or something when you're about to do it, and if I'm around, I'll come and join you.
I'll make a note to myself.
Great stuff. Now I've just got one other. I don't know, that Teenage Strumpets link has got to the channel yet, but just one more link. This is actually something I've come across here in the SL universe, the SL forum, from somebody called Gavin Hurd, saying Xmere Grid welcomes hypergrid visitors. Do you know of Xmere Grid? XMIR?
Yep. I have it on my list to add them to my directory.
Right, okay.
I haven't actually visited them yet.
Well, they've got 30 sims of exciting landscapes and shopping for mesh items you won't find anywhere else on Hypergrid. It's all something. Apparently the grid went standalone after the OS Grid crash in mid-August, and has made several improvements to what they had on OS Grid. It's unique that it's close to void of sculpted items. Items in World are either mesh or traditional prims, which makes it faster than many other places. But I am not sure what exactly this means. But the last sentence, it says, it is unique in that the servers run on OS X, that's Apple's system, of course, with Mono in addition to a post-GRE SQL database.
Oh, interesting.
The database is 40 to 50% faster than the traditional MySQL database that is used by most open. Right.
Yes, I wrote about this a while ago. The PostgreSQL database is a enterprise-grade scalable database. It's more recent comer to the scene. It's still open source. It's still free. And they have a few people have been experimenting with porting OpenSim to it, and they find out that it does speed things up. But most people don't use it because most people are running tiny little grids, so this is interesting that they're experimenting with that database, I will check them out. I will raise that up in my schedule for visiting them.
Yeah, I'm going to stick that in my list of freebie destinations that we have at Outland Sim on Metropolis at the Hypergrid Safari Clubhouse. And yeah, that's definitely going to go in there. That looks nice. Darren makes some nice stuff.
Oh, 30 sims is a sizable chunk for a grid, and if it is generally that faster, it might even cope with the Safari without crashing.
No, let's not talk science fiction. No.
Wishful thinking, eh? Wishful thinking. Okay, well, I guess I guess we'll sort of call it a wrap now. Just ask if anybody's got any closing remarks. Very good to have you here, Thirza. Anything you'd like to say before we depart, so
thank
to
you
speak?
so much for inviting us. It's been lovely to be with you all. Had a lot of fun. Thank you.
And it's great to have you here. And we will, of course, see you on Wednesday on the Hypergrid Safari. Okay, well, that's wonderful. And, of course, I'll take this opportunity to thank Pathfinder Lester, who's now vanished, unfortunately, for joining us earlier. That was absolutely great to have him here, too. And, of course, my thanks to Maria, who I think we've covered everything, haven't we? Or was there anything you want to round up with?
Except for my pumpkin sweater, until Pathfinder showed up with his funky costume. I thought I was going to be the oddball, weirdly dressed.
Is that sweater breathable? That's my only concern.
I haven't seen anything about breathable clothes, but there are breathable shoes. I kid you not. In Second Life, there are breathable shoes. And the unfortunate thing about breathable shoes is that they're butt ugly to begin with. Pardon my description, but I checked them out at one point just because I was curious. And you have to be
open sim right now.
You have to be into a particular kind of high fashion something or other to have an interest in breathable shoes.
Crazy person is that word you're looking for? Was crazy person.
I have to admit that I'm not really that interested in breedables after the novelty wore off. I love my critters, I have to admit, but the breedables is just a bit. And shoes, well, come on.
but Maria, you should be happy to know I just did kind of a little check on the Second Life marketplace, and I do not find any breedable turtles. So it appears that. The open sim breedable turtles, in fact, are a first for breedable turtles anywhere in the metaverse. So,
wow,
aren't you?
Wow.
Yeah, there you go. So there you go. And that's my closing comment for the day.
Oh, thank you. That just goes to show there are still breedable. There's still critters that have not yet been made breedable.
Well, not turtles.
Oh, I don't know how to put a twist on this at all, actually. So I better call an end to it. Okay. Well, it's time to wrap, I think. We've had a great show today, but all very interesting. Sure, there's massive stuff we've missed, but there always are, because 2 hours, long as it is, it's just never enough time to continue the conversation into infinity, as we would be want to do, given our own way, I suspect. We will be back next week, of course. It is possible that we will be back at a different time next week. In which case, you will watch the feeds, and Malbones /twitter.com always has a thing about an hour before the show. It's not at all certain. It's just that we'll be discussing this behind the scenes. Well, anyway, it's just that, that there may be an opportunity to make things a little bit more workable for us. But we will be back next week. I'll put it like that. Instead of doing the old same time, same place, etc., I'll just say we'll be back with you next week. As far as this week is concerned, many thanks to all my guests. Thanks to Pathfinder, who, of course, has already left. Thanks to Thirza Ember for being here. Thank you very much, Thirza.
You.
And thank you as always to Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Indeed, and do check out the news every day at hypergridbusiness.com. and also Meta Maria on Twitter. And also, of course, thanks to Tara. Thank you, Tara.
And you might mention that Tara has been multitasking for the entire show.
Yes, indeed. Tara, for those of you watching on live stream, we weren't here with you last week live, but Tara has been actually filming us on stream, and we have back her copy. We're falling over ourselves to keep copies here, there, and everywhere. We're kind of all operating cameras as well as doing show. But Tara's done a wonderful job. I've been watching the stream silently in the background there, and it's all looking good. And yes, there may be, well, more on other things later. Yes. But for this week, at any rate, it's goodbye, and have a lot of happy hyper jumping in the coming week, if that is your want. And I have to say, if you, this is cheating a bit. Whenever I log into OS Grid, sorry, not OS Grid, the Hypergrid, people do say that there aren't people there. But I have noticed one thing recently, and that is that there may be nobody else on my friends list live when I log in to OpenSim, but it's always online somewhere on my friends list. Almost always, I hasten to add. So well done, Thirza. It's almost like you're residently logged in 24 hours a day to OpenSim. Whenever I log in, you're there somewhere.
I'm stalking you now. I'm sorry you figured it out.
Well, I was just going to say, anybody who complains they can't find it on OpenSim, they can just look up your name, I guess. You'll be online. Yeah, but no, there is a thriving community on OpenSim nowadays. So if you hyper jump around enough, you're bound to find more people. It's not as lonely as it used to be. Anyway, that's my ending note. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good tomorrow, depending on wherever and whenever you are. And we'll see you all next week.